Looks like I'll be there.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the June, what's today, 11th, 2026 meeting of the ASSP Alabama chapter.
Sure.
If you would, please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Randy, will you lead us in the morning prayer?
Dear Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to gather. We thank you for this group of people. We thank you for our companies. We thank you for our employees. We just ask that you help us to form relationships, form bonds that serve our employees, serve our companies, and serve you. We thank you for your grace. We thank you for your mercy. We ask you to bless us as Johnny bless students and speaks. And just in all things, be a part of us and guide us. We thank you. We praise you. In all things, to thee be the glory. Amen.
Amen. Today we got a great presentation. Mr. Stephen Sawyer with Brashfield and Gorey. He's done a lot of presentations at the governor's conference for our chapter here, for other sections and so forth. He does a great job. Today's presentation is on why stickies matters. I think you'll enjoy it.
Yep. Okay, good. We're good. Awesome, man. That was weird. Okay. Hey, how's everybody doing today? Everybody good? Awesome. No, I'm just kidding. We had to do that last time, so I was totally aware of that. So I do appreciate the opportunity to come, as always. Appreciate this group. I certainly appreciate what this group stands for, and it's always an honor and a privilege to come talk a little bit about maybe the way we think about safety in our company and the way maybe I think about safety individual. I hope it's really two things I would share with you before we get started today. Number one, thank you for being here. If you saw the agenda, knew I was coming, you came anyway, I appreciate that. But two, I hope this feels different when you leave here today. My hope and my goal is that it challenges you and I, that when we leave here today, maybe we think about safety a little differently. Maybe it'll challenge us to view safety a little bit differently. And so the second thing I would give you is I got asked this question, and it's really what got me on this trail to build this presentation. I was asked this question a few months ago from a candidate that we were actually interviewing, and he asked me this question. He said, Stephen, how does Brashfield and Gorey do safety? And I thought that's a really interesting question, because I thought, well, that's an easy answer, right? We do safety just like a lot of our partners in this room do safety. I mean, it's type 2 hard hats, it's platform podium ladders, it's the things, it's JSA, it's all the things that we know. That's how we do safety. That's kind of what we call blocking and tackling, X's and O's of safety. And I told him, I said, it's really not so much how we do safety, it's maybe the way we view safety that I think is unique in our industry today, and maybe the way that I personally view safety. So I want to talk a little bit about that with you today. And again, I hope that when we all leave here today, we leave here and this felt a little different. And I hope you leave here saying, man, that's a different sort of way to think about safety. So we do talk a lot about this idea of sticky, but I also get this question a lot. I mean, what is it that's got us on this trail about sticky? And I'll tell you in a little bit what sticky is. Just kind of put a pin in that. We'll come back to that. But it's really this idea. If you look at these graphs, and don't get too nervous. I'm not a safety guy that's going to sit up here and bore you with a bunch of stats, I promise. But I think these tell an unbelievable story when I look at these graphs and I think about these stats. So the graph you see on the left line, that is the Bureau of Labor Statistics fatality versus non-fatal injury rate. And if you notice in that graph, and I'll talk with the other two just briefly in a moment, the one on the left kind of shows about a 30-year window of the black line represents the total RIR for the industry, and that red line actually represents the fatality rate in the industry. And it's interesting to me, if I look at that black line, something is really, really noticeable to me. What do you notice about that black line when you look at that graph? Yeah, it's a drastic decline, right? I mean, it's drastically going from somewhere around an 8.5 to 9, all the way down to about a 3. So the TRIR in the industry went from about a 9 down to about a 3 in that 30-year window. The red line, you notice over that same course of time, was about a 5, and now it's hovering at about a 4. And what's interesting, somebody asked me a while back, they're like, well, why hadn't you updated the graph? I was like, there's no need to, because the numbers are actually the same. There's no need of me spending the time to go look and get the new one, because the numbers actually didn't change. And I'll show you that in just a minute. But what's interesting about the red line to me, and really almost disheartening when I think about it, is that the red line really hasn't changed in the last 40 years. And the red line actually represents how many times somebody was fatally injured in the workplace or at the job site and didn't go home. And so when I look at that, I think, man, it's amazing to me that the black line has such a drastic improvement, if you will. I mean, technically that's what we're talking about. It's actually an improved number. And so that's so drastically improved. And I think we know why that is. I think there's certainly been a heightened awareness around how we think about recordable injuries, how we manage those claims, some things that we do. We've certainly got a lot better in terms of that as an industry, as a company even. But I do think what's interesting to me is why has that red line not moved over the last 30 or 40 years? If you notice the bar graph on the right, it actually shows the same exact story. And then if you notice this graph on the bottom, it's just another representation of the fatality rate that has virtually been unchanged in the last 30 or 40 years. So when we talk about why maybe we need to view safety differently, I think it's because of this slide right here, to be quite honest with you. This is interesting. This is actually a credit to OSHA. Sometimes when I think about this slide, I don't want my OSHA friends that I have, and I have a lot of them, I don't want them to ever view this as though this is a negative toward them. This is actually kind of catapulting what they have been trying to tell us for a long, long time. But this came out just a few years ago, and it said this in the Construction Dive magazine. It said that despite OSHA's efforts, construction death rate hasn't budged in 10 years. In over a decade, the rate in which employees who come to work every single day to provide for their family and just earn a living, the time in which they don't go home, that number has not changed. And I don't know about you. I think I speak for all of us in this room when I say that I'm just not okay with that. I'm actually really, really bothered when I think about that. Because I know a lot of you in this room share the same profession I do, that every single day when I get up for 27 years, I've done the same thing. And I go to work and I do safety every single day and try to protect people and save lives. I mean, that's literally what I do every day. That's my full-time job. I know a lot of you share that same occupation that I do. And so when I hear that, I'm like, that's just not okay. It's not okay with me. And so when we've talked a lot about maybe why we change the way we think and view safety personally as well as corporately as a company, it's really because of these last couple of slides. And so it's interesting to me when I think about how it used to be. Now, there's some folks in the room who have been doing this a lot longer than me, and I'll not name any names because you know you are, but I've been doing this for a little while. And it's interesting because I can actually remember some photos that used to look like this way back in the 90s. It's interesting when you think about that. Surprisingly, you probably could ride by some places in Birmingham and maybe still see some of that potentially. But you notice there's a couple of Brass Fun Glory hard hats on there. So we're no shame in our game that we used to way back in the day when the company was founded. This is probably some things that we did. But then I think about the new normal, right? I think about how construction looks like today versus what it used to look like. And what you notice here, you see some tool tethers up there. You see Type 2 hard hats. You see manufactured guardrails now. You see platform podium ladders. You see these adjuster stairs versus job-made ladders. So there's been all these changes that have really changed the way we think about safety. Now, yes, this is certainly how we do safety, but the reason why we changed these things is because we knew that the only way to affect the red line is by changing some of these things, because these things are the things that had the potential to get somebody fatally or catastrophically injured on our job. Right. So let's talk about that a little bit. So we changed the gear, but we didn't change the outcome. It was interesting. If you think about the outcome has still been the same. We talk about how it used to be. And I would say this, I think that part on the bottom is really interesting to me. If standard safety rules were enough to stop fatalities, that flat red line would have dropped, but it hasn't. Because here's actually what I believe. More rules don't actually make you safer. I actually don't think that's what makes us safer. I think there's a lot of things that do, and I think that's one of those things. We have about a 480-page safety manual, like many of you do. And if you said, sorry, why don't you double the size of that today and make that thing 960 pages? I think my math is correct there. Let's do that. And if we did that today, would that make us any safer? And I would say absolutely not. As a matter of fact, there may be some rebellion in the company, maybe some mutiny on the ship if we did that, right? And so that actually hasn't changed the way we think about safety. So what is safety? I think this is really interesting. I think if we were to maybe poll the room, if we had time, and we ask each other to define what is safety actually, the way we think about it, maybe even how we sort of approach it and view it. And I would tell you that I used to think this certainly early in my career, that to me, safety success was defined by having no incidents on my job. And certainly that would be one way to think about success. If I had no incidents, I'd be like, wow, that's amazing. But I used to think that certainly early in my career was like, if on my project in my group, if there was 0 incidents, then that is absolute success. And in turn, if I had any incidents, then that may be a metric of not being successful, right? That's how I used to think about safety. But I would share with you and maybe suggest to you today that safety is actually not the absence of accidents. It's not really the way to measure safety success. It would actually be measured by the presence of controls. So as I view safety and I think about this in terms of how I would view safety success, it's not, hey, that everything went perfect and nothing ever went wrong, as much as I would view it as saying we had the right controls in place every day, every task, every single time. And if we don't have the right controls in place, and we'll talk about what that means here in a minute, but if we don't have the right controls in place for the tasks that our employees are about to perform, then that is actually a gap in our system. And that's an actual metric that I can look at and say, hey, we actually control that. We as leadership control the safety system that our employees work within. I think all of us would agree with that. And so if inside of that safety system that we create and control, if we have the right controls in there, or if we don't have the right controls in there, then that's something we actually ought to really, really look at and say, that's a metric of success, or maybe a metric of unsuccess, if you want to think of it like that. And so safety is capacity for us. If I'm trying to define it, again, I'm going back to the conversation that I had with the gentleman that day that asked me the question about how we do safety, and I told him it's really about how we view it. One, our definition of safety is that, but then two, safety is capacity. You're like, well, Sawyer, what does that mean? Well, for me, what that means is that not if, right? Because I would tell you that it's not a matter of if something goes wrong, it's when something doesn't go right. Because if I'm being really, really honest, not everything's going to go right all the time. It's just not. We'll talk some more about that in just a minute. But the reality is that when something doesn't go right, I have enough capacity in my system that it's not catastrophic when that does happen. There's enough capacity and resiliency in our system that when something doesn't go right, somebody doesn't end up as a number on that red line. There's enough controls in place to withstand some failure in our system, right? I want to talk some more about that because I think that is really challenging me when I think about it. It's challenging me when I try to communicate that to our teams at our company. And when I tell them, hey, we're not looking for this place, I would love to tell you that we would never have another incident in our company. And I know I got some friends in the room that would love to say the same thing. Like if we could say that today, we'd be like, phew. But I just know that's not reality, right? Especially if you try to define what an actual incident is, which we can talk some more about. So let's dive into that. Some realities I'll give you this morning that I think are really interesting. One, minor injuries rarely predict serious injuries because the things that hurt people are not the same things that kill people, right? If we think about things that technically could hurt somebody, it could be a splinter in the finger. It could be somebody getting some dust in their eye. It could be maybe even somebody rolling their ankle in the parking lot. And I'm giving you real life examples of things that we have dealt with. Those things actually affect the black line that we looked at. But those things never, ever have the potential to show up on the red line. You guys agree with that? Is that okay? I think that's fair to say. Now, I really want to preface that and really want to give you this disclaimer because I mean this with every ounce of my being is like, for us, I am not okay with those numbers on the black line. I'm never okay with somebody getting hurt on our job. It doesn't matter how minor or major. We're just not okay with that. But the point is that the things that actually have the potential to get somebody hurt that could potentially be a recordable are not the same things that get somebody fatally injured on the job. Those things are actually different, right? And it's really important that we differentiate between those things because if you look at that slide a minute ago that shows tool tethers and different types of stairs and ladders and guard, those things are the things that we're trying to put into place as controls in our system that can prevent somebody from being significantly or fatally injured. That's what we're really talking about in this place. Reality number two, employees don't die because they're the problem. I want to kind of dispel this, and I'm pretty passionate about this, and I've had some conversations with a lot of folks about this idea of, hey, you know what? We're going to try to fix the worker. We're going to fix the employee. If we can fix them and make them do something different, then that'll solve our problems. And the reality is they're working inside of a safety system that we created. Okay? And so what's interesting to me is they don't die, they don't show up on that red line as a stat because they're the problem. They actually die because of uncontrolled energy. Because energy that was not controlled, it became released, and that energy and that employee come in contact with each other, and energy always wins in that scenario, right? Because stuff that can kill you is almost always based upon uncontrolled energy. We're going to talk some more about what that looks like as well. So I told you I'd come back to what sticky is. For us, sticky is this stuff that can kill you. And so we've tried to put this into 9 buckets, if you will, from our standpoint. We said, hey, and some of this will not surprise you. Some of it's OSHA's focus forward, and those things will never change, right? There will always be those potential, what we call those PSIFs, potentially serious injury, fatality, what we call sticky, the stuff that can kill you. And so what we said is all the work that takes place in our company, on our projects, falls essentially inside one of these buckets. We could attach the work that we're performing, our operations, to one of these 9 things, right? And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I want you to just kind of see, because for us, we said this, if we think about sticky, about the things that have the potential to be significant or fatal, if we think of it and we can kind of distill that down into some areas that we can say, hey, if we're working at heights, we know that's fall protection. If we know we're working in confined spaces, what those things are, then let's talk about what controls we need while that work is taking place. Because if I have the right controls in place, I'll actually protect my people, right? And so for us, we said, hey, let's try to make this as simple as we can. And so I get this question a lot. I think it's interesting to me. And I always share this slide in a lot of presentations that I do, because I think this slide, to me, it's pretty heartfelt. A lot of these folks on this slide I've worked with my entire career. A lot of these folks in these pictures I've known. They've been here longer than I have. Some pictures up there, some personal photos up there of my family. And it's interesting because when I think about the red line, I really want our people that hear this to understand and can maybe connect with what we're really talking about. And so when we talk about somebody coming in contact with uncontrolled energy that has the potential to be fatal to them, we're actually talking about taking them out of family photos. We're talking about the fact that, you know what, the folks that are on that red line, they'll never be in a future family photo again. And I'll just tell you, for us, I know you're the same way in this room, we're just not in the business of taking people out of photos. It's just not the business we're in. People, we say this at our company, and I think this is really important to say. People don't come to work in construction. They're not signing up to go sign up for the Navy SEALs and put their life on the line. That's not the business that we're in. If you come to work in construction, that doesn't mean that, hey, I may get killed today, or hey, I'm putting my life at risk because I'm working in construction. That's the way it used to be. That's not the way it is today. And so for us, we owe it to our people to say, you know what? You come work here, we have a responsibility to make sure you go home tonight. Under all circumstances, no matter what it takes, no matter what amount of things we have to do to make that happen, we are absolutely committed to making that happen for you. Okay, so I think that's really important to think about. So really 7 things that I would tell you are kind of our principles of safety leadership. So 1, potential over outcome. For us, it's not about the outcome. It's about the potential outcome. And I think all of you in this room could certainly share this same sentiment where you've had something happen on a job. Maybe it's an incident, maybe a near miss, whatever you want to call it. And you heard somebody say, wow, we got really, really lucky. Nobody got hurt when that thing went boom, right? Well, if traditional safety would tell you this, that if nobody got hurt, no harm, no foul, let's just move on. We got lucky, let's just keep operating. For us, we don't view it that way. We view it not so much about the outcome, whether somebody got hurt or not. We don't view it as that being what's going to drive our efforts. We talk about the potential. If the potential was there for it to be sticky, then we're going to have a conversation about that. Our response matters when we suffer a sticky event. The way we respond dictates our actual culture. The way we respond to those things, sometimes we're going to be maybe overreactive, and I actually think that's okay. When there's a sticky event, I think us being hyper reactive is a good thing. I don't think there's ever a time where there's a sticky event and we said, hey, you know what? We're just going to kind of be lackadaisical about this. It's just a sticky event. Somebody could have been killed here. No, when that happens and it's a true sticky event and we categorize that as such, we are going to respond the appropriate way. We're not going to blame. We are not going to blame the employee. We're not going to blame ourselves. We're not going to blame our trade partners, our subcontractors. We want to remove that conversation out of the equation in its totality. And you say, well, why is that, Sawyer? Because I would tell you that for me, blame is actually lazy safety. It's what I call lazy safety, because it's easier to blame than it is to actually get better. And so for me, when I think about that, it would be easier for me to blame somebody. Even like I've had teams that say this sometimes, like, hey, Steve, it's actually, man, this is my fault. I'm going to kind of own this. And I'm like, man, I appreciate that sentiment. And I really do. I appreciate that sort of taking extreme ownership. It just doesn't help us learn and get better. It stops the learning. And so if it's like, hey, it's my fault, you're like, okay, well, then we just blame Sawyer. Easy to do. Well, if that happens, then we don't have any more conversation about our system, gaps in our system, organizational gap, whatever those things are that actually help us get better. So we're just going to take blame off the table altogether. And then learning is vital. It is absolutely vital. When we have a sticky event, you cannot perform and learn at the same time. It is imperative that when we have a sticky event that we pause and we have open, honest, robust conversations as a team, and that will drive us to getting better. It's the only way you can do it. And so we're passionate about that. We believe in that. Errors are expected. I mentioned this earlier. Mistakes are going to be made. I mean, it's just a fact. Mistakes are going to be made. We are all error prone. We are all mistake prone, and mistakes are going to be made. And we understand that. And that is a process of just human beings working in our field. We just know that, right? And so it's important. And not everything is going to go right. And when it doesn't, we have to be sure that we have the right controls in place that are going to protect them when a mistake gets made. There's a difference between somebody making a mistake and somebody misbehaving. Those two things are not the same. So I certainly don't want anybody to kind of think of it in terms of that, because I certainly don't. There is a very stark difference between somebody made a mistake, and I'm going to give you a really good example in a minute, and somebody who just is misbehaving. Well, those two things are different. They got to be handled different. I'm talking about just solely somebody made a mistake, right? And how we deal with that and respond to that, it matters, right? It's not an intentional violation. It's not an intentional act that they did. They just made a mistake. I've made several since I've been in here, and you guys probably noticed that. So leadership, ownership. For us, we look in the mirror and we say this, that if controls are missing, that we're going to protect if there's a gap in our safety system, then we own that. We own it. Extreme ownership for us is that we're not going to say, hey, we're going to have all these reasons, whether it's the industry or it's the location, or it's, hey, the workforce is not as talented as it used to be. All those conversations, we could spend the rest of the day talking about all those things that are influencers and contributors. But at the end of the day, the truth still remains. We control the system. We create the system. Our employees work inside that system. And if there's gaps in that system, that is ours to control. And we have to get to a place where leadership and senior management and those of us in this room say, that is mine to control 100%. And leadership creates the system, and then that is what's going to make that system work. And then lastly, I would tell you this, the seventh principle is that for us, controls save lives. That is the bedrock for us of our safety system, is that we have the right controls, those critical controls that are going to control the energy from being released and coming in contact with an employee. And if we do that right, and we do it well, it absolutely will save lives. There's no doubt. And so for us, it's not so much about measuring where risk is high. If I'm being really honest, I have a lot of folks in here that are in construction, around construction. Everything we do is high risk. I actually tell you this, if you think about, just take steel erection as a great example. If somebody's working on the 7th floor as a connector, connecting beams and columns on the 7th floor, that is high risk work. There is no way to ever minimize the nature of that high risk work. But what we ought to be measuring is this: where are our controls low when that work is actually taking place? I can't change the high risk nature of our business. It is what it is. What I can do, though, is measure where we have the right controls in place, or look at, hey, are our controls low in those areas, right? And so I think this is true. Like, if we're going to prevent serious injuries and fatalities, it is going to require us to kind of think about it this way. If uncontrolled energy is what kills people, and we know that, shouldn't we focus on controlling the energy? Because not everything's going to go right all the time. So does anybody here not have a case on their cell phone? Does everybody have a case on your cell phone? I do. I don't know how you got, I'm kind of doubled up on mine. I actually have a case and a protective screen on my phone. But I'm always interested because I actually have some folks in our company who don't have a case on their cell phone. My son, who's 23, he's a deputy sheriff. He doesn't have a case on his cell phone, and it drives his dad crazy. I'll just be honest with you. I'm like, son, like I can't even go to dinner with you and even look at this phone. Anyway, it's driving me crazy. So, and you're like, well, why is that? Because my phone, I have had phones look like this one on the left before, and I know what that's like if I drop my phone. And I was thinking about this when I got out. I parked up on the high lot, and I was kind of walking down. I had my phone, I had my bag, and I was actually talking on the phone as I was walking in. And I thought about this, and I thought, man, if I drop my phone in this parking lot, what is going to happen? And so I would ask you this: why do you guys put a case on your cell phone? In case you drop it. I think it's interesting to me because as I was thinking about this on the way in, just a little while ago, I wasn't in my mind saying, you know what I hope I do today? I hope I drop my phone out here in this parking lot and break it. You know what, I want to test this case and see if it really, they say it's military grade. I don't know. I don't want to test it, to be honest with you. I just trust that it is. And I know if you've ever dropped your phone, I know you're kind of probably like me. It makes a very distinct thud when it hits the pavement or the concrete. And I have dropped this phone, and when I do, the first thing that comes to mind is, man, I really hope that didn't break my screen. Um, so it's interesting to me. I don't put a case on my cell phone because I get up and say, you know what, I hope I do today. I plan to drop my phone. But there's a real high likelihood and probability that I'm going to do that. And the reality is, when I do, I want to make sure that I have the right control in place that's going to protect that phone. Now, you said that's really easy because we can just replace a phone. But when I equate that to, and I try to relate that to employees working on our projects that are being protected by the controls we put in place, if those controls are missing, I can't replace the person. I can't go down here to, you break it, you fix it, and get a new screen put on that. Those people don't get to go home. They get pulled out of family photos. And so when we talk about controls, that's what we're actually talking about, is the stuff that has the potential to get somebody killed. And so I think about this picture here. It's actually a short video, but I won't show you just for the sake of time. But if you think about ever going to the zoo or going to the aquarium, it's interesting to me that they put a glass cage between you and the tiger, or you and the bear, or whatever that is, right? We went to Yellowstone several years ago, and it was interesting to me. It was kind of like shock and awe, because I'd never been out in a place like that where all of the wildlife, there's nothing between you and them. And there is if you've been, there's a tremendous amount of bears and elk, and they are completely wild, and you don't approach, right? But it's interesting to me because my whole life, if I go see some wildlife, it's really like this. So why do you think they put a sheet of glass between the people that are there at the zoo and this tiger that's kind of lurking behind her? Tiger bait, right? Tiger food. It's interesting to me when I think about this, because somebody said, you know what, if we don't put a control in place, because really what that tiger is it's just kind of sitting there. It's actually energy that's fixing to be released. If there's not glass between her and that tiger that's going to control that energy, protect her from being killed, right? It's interesting when I think about this. It's kind of this multiple choice thing. I mean, what keeps our people, if we think about our folks that work on our projects in our industries, and you think about the same scenario, they're out there just doing what they do every single day. What is it that prevents them from being mauled by that energy that gets released, right? Is it some Shim's rule, some safety manual rule that says, hey, never turn your back on a Siberian tiger, which is kind of what she did there. And if we're not careful, we'd say, listen, we told you not to turn your back on that tiger, and you did it anyway. We've had that conversation. Or is it, say, we put some warning signs? I bet you there are signs at that zoo that says don't provoke or feed the tigers. Bet you there are some signs. I know that because I've seen some signs like that at the zoo and at the aquarium, right? Or would it be, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to train you how to work safely around the tiger. That way, you can just be super safe. Be more careful. Expect the unexpected, the things that we like to say sometimes. Or do you actually think the thing that actually will prevent our people from getting mauled is a bulletproof cage, or what we would call a control, right? I think we'd all would agree that D is the key to that. So I think for us, what we've got to get to is stop asking this question, who did something wrong? And ask ourselves this question, what in our system allowed this to happen? What in our safety system actually allowed this to happen? Because preventing SIF actually requires a different view, and that is hard. If I'm being honest with you, that is, we are grappling with that in our company, because it's just hard. It's so natural and easy just to say, hey, that individual wasn't wearing this, or that individual did this, and that was a terrible decision they made. I was telling Randy about an incident that we had last week on a demolition project, and the operator pulled the track hoe too close to the same material that he was actually pulling down, and the sequence was right. Everything was accurate except for the operator drove that track hoe too close to the structure that he was actually preparing to demo. And some of that structure fell and landed on the cab of the track hoe. Thankfully, he's okay, no injuries. But for us, we're like, hey, that's a sticky event. Hey, we're fixing to pause. And so we paused this week. We had a good conversation. And it was amazing to me that the owner of that subcontractor was immediately trying to blame the operator and said he should have never drove that track hoe that close to the demo work that he was performing. It's so natural to do that. Is some of that true? Yeah, he shouldn't have done that, but he's operating in a system that we created that allowed that to happen, right? And so we got to a really good place was, hey, I hear you, but that's the wrong machine for the work that we're performing because it didn't allow him to have the distance or, again, the capacity to, if something goes wrong, to actually withstand that or respond to that, right? So if we said, hey, if we use a different machine, we can keep a buffer between him and the drop zone. And so next time something prematurely or inadvertently falls, it doesn't land on the track hoe. It's just a different way of thinking about it. So we changed the controls, but we looked inside our system and said, our system allowed this to happen, not the operator making a mistake. Okay. I would ask you this question. Why do you think we put employees in fall protection? Yeah, that's such a good answer. It's a spot on answer. We expect them, we're actually anticipating somebody to fall. And that sounds crazy, right? Because what I'd love to tell you is, hey, we use all this fall protection, but we never actually have to put it into practice. We actually never have to test it. We got thousands of people in fall protection today. I hope we never have to test it. The reality is we've tested a lot. We've tested a lot. It is a critical control that is in place because that's actually a release of energy. When that person falls, that energy has been released, and we better have a control in place that's going to control the energy. What we call a fall save. We track fall saves as a metric of success, not just RIR and LTIR and all those things. We actually track fall saves as one of our measures of success here. How many times did somebody fall that we had fall protection in place that saved their life? I would tell you that I would love to tell you today, stand here and tell you that we're never going to have another person ever fall working on a construction project. The reality is that's just not true. There are absolutely going to be people that's going to fall. But if we got them in fall protection, we have that control in place, that's a huge win. It's a huge success. We've had 4 or 5 this year alone that's happened. It's almost one a month. But we view that as a major success. Now, we're going to stop. We're going to learn. We're going to have a conversation, figure out what is that caused them to fall. And what's interesting, more times than not, there's no external contributor that actually, like, something knocked them off the edge or knocked them off a beam. They just had a misstep, or there's some other component, the work that they were performing that didn't actually cause them to fall. They just fell. A mistake was made, something happened, and so we want to make sure we got that. We just don't want failure to succeed, right? If there is some mistake, something failed in our system, we just don't want failure to have success, right? It's really, really important. Everything that we need to have our next sticky event, it already exists on our projects. This is an interesting thought to me. We actually don't have to introduce anything else to our project. Everything we have in place right now is all that we need to have a sticky event. You don't need another crane to show up, another employee to show up. All those things are already existent right now. And so if we know that, we ought to be evaluating that, saying, hey, where are controls low? Where are we missing controls? Do we have the right controls in place? And we should ask this question: when, not if, but when this task or this person fails, or again, makes a mistake, what controls do we have in place that is going to prevent us from being killed or seriously hurt? I think that's question one. Question two is, are those controls enough? And we ask ourselves this question a lot when we have a learning huddle, is like, did we have the right controls in place? Let's talk about what those controls should have been. Did we have them in place? And then, are those controls actually enough, or should we be doing more? I think that's a really interesting question. And so one thing that we do is we try to categorize these sticky events in one of two ways: whether we were lucky or whether we were good. Because everything we need to have it is actually existent right now. So if we have a sticky event, the first thing is, hey, is it sticky or not? Did it truly have the potential to be significant or fatal? And that's a yay or nay. That's pretty simple. If it falls in that sticky bucket, that yes, it had the potential, the next thing we ask ourselves, were we lucky or were we good? If we were lucky, it means we had gaps in our system, we had controls that were missing. And that is an area of a metric of success that we actually measure ourselves against that. We say, hey, how many times were we sticky lucky? meaning we did not have the right controls in place and we knew those controls should have been in place, versus how many times were we sticky good, which simply means this, that, hey, we were operationally good. We had a sticky event, but we had the right controls in place and nobody got hurt. I'd give you a quick example. So if we have an employee working on leading edge that drops a hammer and that hammer was tethered off with a tool tether, is that an incident? Absolutely, it's an incident. We would categorize that as that's an unintended outcome. That is an incident that took place, but we would call that a sticky good event. We would put that in the sticky good. We had the right controls in place, because the other hand is if that hammer falls from the 7th floor and there's no control in place, it has the potential to be catastrophic or fatal, right? Or let's say somebody's doing some work on the exterior of the building and they have a hard barricade zone down below on the ground floor and they drop something inside that barricaded zone. We would categorize that as sticky good. So I think it's just a different maybe view of how we sort of measure success and maybe think about safety in terms of that. So, and then again, lastly, I said this, but I hope you guys, if you don't remember anything else I said, just that controls save lives. I believe that as passionately as I can, as firmly as I can. I believe that controls absolutely save lives. So thank you. I'll be glad. Any questions, thoughts? I was standing in front of you and some sandwiches, so I needed to hurry up.
That was excellent. And on target, and you know, I hear a lot of speakers, a lot of conferences, and that is as good and as useful of information and messaging you can hear. Well, Steve is really talking about system safety, which is the core of what this profession is built on back in the 40s and 50s. And that whole element is about planning. And planning is not going to be perfect, but it's about planning. And I go to a lot of conferences, and every speaker you hear, not just safety speakers, but on any topic, it comes back to planning. And that's really the core of what our job is coordinating, or get the right people, the right partnership, the right buy-in, and plan how to succeed. And so often we get people, and it's like we're planning safety. But when you do that, you're putting safety in a box. You're making it something separate. And you're setting it up as something that may not succeed. And one key is always to integrate that into the overall process. And I think B&G, Bob, seen through the decades ever since you and I on a Western product a long time ago. I mean, B&G has really done a great job in doing that well. Bringing the right values to that. And Steve has always been a great part of that. So he's a great one to listen to. He's a great messaging. So, you know, take that and learn from it, because this is the best message, the best truth you can go through. So anyway, great job, Steve.
Any more questions? Well, Stephen. Hey, this is the collection, I guess. How many do you have at this point?
It's my first one.
Oh, it's your first one, yeah.
Yeah, we missed them last time.
You missed the last time.
At the students,
Sorry
yeah.
about that. Stephen,
Thank you.
the coveted mug.
It is covered, actually.
You drink coffee?
Absolutely. Great.
Microwavable safe, dishwasher safe, so we've been told.
So
You'll find
and
out there.
never used, so that's all. Not been used before. That's good. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to go ahead? All right, we're good to go. All right, we're gonna go around the room and introduce ourselves since we got a lot of new people or some people who haven't been in here in a while. I'm Tom Tonight, current president of the ASSP chapter. By the way, this is our last cycle, so the last year is coming up. Next June, I'm saying goodbye. I'm retiring. So I'll be saying goodbye to everybody. So if somebody's interested in joining our executive committee, we're going to be looking for new people on our committee. Justin will become president. Vincent will be vice president. Alan may or may not be our treasurer. She had mentioned she was going to stay a year, maybe. She might stay longer, who knows? we're looking for a program person to set up presentations, government, what's it called? Government administrator, who basically reads the government email you get from ASSP and lets us know what's going on as far as OSHA and EPA and so forth. And we're looking for other people who'd like to get involved too. So if you want to get involved, let us know. We'd be more than happy to start training you for next year. Anyways, go ahead.
Justin Shepard, Vice President of this chapter and Vice President of Ergo Science work we do in the convention.
Vincent Scott, Secretary and Media Guy. What was it? Anyway, that's what I do here at ASSP.
Yeah, Stephen Sawyer, Safety Director, Brazos Board.
J.R. Dove, Safety Director for Beale Harbor International.
My name is Kisum Parag, and everybody call me Sunny, and my company. And my company is a POSCO, and it's a Korean steel company. And I worked there for 27 months as a safety manager. So glad to find this kind of a society, and it's my first time to join it, and I really liked it. If the instructor, allowed me, then I would like to have that kind of PPT program. PPT, I mean, the
Presentation.
yeah.
Okay.
That was really great.
John Placey, I'm retired. Last meeting that I came to, I was given the Lifetime Services Award by the chapter, so I thought I better come. Another meeting and appreciate it.
John, by the way, we're looking for a treasurer, so.
60 years at ASSP.
I know. Yeah.
And was the treasurer before ASSP even existed. ASA existed, I think, before the dinosaur.
We call it the John Placey Treasurer. Emeritus, okay.
Hey, good morning, afternoon. Ross Boker, I'm Manager of Safety Services, Bulk Materials. I haven't come to one of these for a minute. A lot of times they conflict if they're on a Friday, but I spend a lot of my time on our fatality prevention program. So on a Thursday and I brought a guest with me.
I'm Brittany Smith. I'm a safety and health rep at Vulcan. I've only been here about a year, so. Caitlin Reynolds, safety manager at ASSP.
I'm Safety Manager for D&F Equipment Sales Incorporated in Crossflower. Yeah, I'm Tom Robinson with the Associated General Contractors of Alabama. I'm with John. They gave me an award, so I thought I better start coming.
I'm Donald Carey. I'm a regional sales manager for Axon. We're a Swedish-based machine guard and polymer manufacturer. I cover 4 states out of Birmingham. I'm a guest of Randy I met last week at a track.
Justin Campbell, Safety Assistant with Premier Service Company.
Randy Easterling, I supervise the USA Safe State Consultation Program, University of Alabama, to be redundant. I'm also the area director for ASSP for Alabama and Mississippi.
Anybody have any announcements? Hey, Tom. RiskCon, is it gonna be in September now?
Yes,
Okay, it's not on the website, I looked, so it will be in September. Do you know what date is?
I do not because
I think it's the 10th.
I don't know either.
we're still working on speakers.
Okay.
Pretty sure it's September.
Any safety status issue, anybody want to talk about?
I'll just bring up one thing. We've got a lot of things going on, especially thank you, construction things. I think the whole view is that OSHA's changed. We've got the Trump administration and, more alliances, and you hear a lot of that being promoted, alliances and partnerships, you'll hear those talked about. But, enforcement's still there. Saw the regional administrator and she was talking about OSHA's hiring and looking and, she was like, we're hiring compliance officers, and you know what they do. And I sort of laid that as groundwork because what's not going on is OSHA's not putting press releases about significant events. And I don't think very many people, there was basically an excavation very close to here. Proposed penalties were $170,000 and it settled for $154,000. So, enforcement's still out there. So, just, don't.
That's their national emphasis right now is confined space. If they walk by and see an excavation or something, or some people down, they have to stop. It's their.
That's been going on for a while.
I know, it really, yeah.
But those things are there, those things are still there. So, you hear a lot of talk, there's things we see where there may be less citations, lesser dollar amounts, things, but those cases are still there. They're just not being put out in the media. Just for what that's worth. Yes, thank you, Joe.
Well, I'll bring up an issue, we'll take the issue. A lot of people have these ice forwards that are zero turn motors. And driving down the road, sometimes they throw rocks out. Well, I got that last week and it hit the side mirror behind me. I did not know that window broke into so many small pieces of glass that was shattered into the car. I thought I got shot. That's what I thought. But there was a
30-06
car, so it was shot. But a huge rock came out and put the window out, glass all over the car, nothing to eat. But the passengers in the back would have got shattered with glass, and the other driver's side, passenger side on the other side would have glass all over. I had so much glass, it was unbelievable. And half was in the road and half. So I did not know glass to do that if it gets hit with a huge rock from a mower, just a regular mower that a residential person. That's a zero turn, mower. Be aware of that. It can't happen.
Well, actually, it can only happen to you, Tom, but that's another.
Well, this week I was driving up to Huntsville and I'm driving by and I said, oh, there's one of those mowers. And damn, I saw a huge rock fly up about 20 yards from it. Hit on another big rock. So it happens a lot. Let's see, some of the conferences, events that are coming, obviously, Safety 2026. Is anybody going to it? It's next week. You're going to it? Great, Justin, let us know how it is out there. So you'll be going to California. Great. Governor Safety and Health Conference is coming up in August. You're going to everybody going to Governor Safety and Health Conference? All right, 26 to 28. Was it sold out? Usually it's got that 450, sometimes a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's sold out. We stopped taking a zip code. We've got a group
Hotels
of.
sold out. Yeah, that sounds like
Same day.
within a couple of days, the same day, yeah. They do some other hotels, they have a list of couple others as well. And you're still gonna do your Rosanna, okay. We do Bonanza Day fishing that down on Orange Beach. We
Do a deep sea fishing rodeo.
They go.
And then,
And obviously it's September, possibly the 10th is to determine the risk on ABC. And that's also.
Manufacturer Alabama's company, 27th, 28th.
Chapter meeting coming up, and after meeting July, summer, they'll do it, so very summer vacation. Next meeting will be in August, I'm either gonna be the 20th or the 13th, or the Thursday before that Fridays. To be determined, we just gotta find a speaker and figure out what's the best. In September, Dr. Lee Davis, who did his research on marijuana and ASSP members helped him with his research. It's state legalization of marijuana, the effect it's having on construction, as well as the general use work. That'll be September 18th. That is a Friday, that's the day he could do it.
I was looking hard to get volunteers, was it?
Training opportunities at UA's OSHA Training Institute. It is summer, so it's really slowed down. There's not much going on there. They do have a couple training sessions. It says lockout, tag out virtual. It's a one-day course, basically the 20th of August. I think it's more of an introduction to electrical versus lockout, tag out. So that may be what it is. There's also a guy that does for hygiene on the 3rd of August. That's also one day. Both are virtual. And UAB will start up with their training technology as well. The automatic
testing for what they do, as well as the testing, for what they do as well. Our next meeting will be sometime in August, to be determined based on our stick group plan. So have a great summer, enjoy your vacation, enjoy the live, take trips to wherever your travels take you today, that you're off the goals. Thanks. Enjoy, good luck.